Hello everyone and welcome to the Animezilia, and today we're going to be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains episode 120. And that's right, the final episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains anime series. And well, overall, I actually thought it was a very good episode. We had some... The dueling wasn't brilliant, but it was okay. But the main thing that made this episode good was actually the emotional effect and the feelings that it had towards the end. Obviously, we all knew that it had to end one way or another. And the way they went, for me, was actually really good. I enjoyed it. And it actually gave me some GX vibes, almost. So let's just jump right into this review, shall we? We start off the episode with the whole "let's become one thing" being brought up again by Ai. If you remember last week, I said to Yusaku, look, let's just become one. Like I said, much in my last review, it kind of reminded me of the Yubel and Jaden situation. But Yusaku basically throws this out the window and Ai just jokes off and says, I got dumped. Very well. But Playmaker says something that was really good and profound in this sort of part of the episode. And that is, life has no solution. If we're sad, we try to find a solution to make ourselves feel better. But that can only last for a while. And during that, Playmaker also summarises what life is about. And the way that he summarises it is by saying that life is about bonds. And I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Likes to play this word so many times throughout their entire sort of franchise. You've got the whole, I think you got it in every single one if I'm honest, but this was very prominent in 5Ds. And I'm pretty sure they make a nod to 5Ds later on in the episode. So, Yusaku basically states that life is all about bonds. And yes, over time, some of those bonds can be severed or break. But that's what makes us become better. We can reforge and create new bonds as we go along in life. And sometimes those bonds will come with big changes. But those big changes are what's there to make us a better person. And I basically says, oh, so that's life? Well, that's too much work. I'm not going to do that. Because, you know, in the end of the day, you have to be strong to be able to put up with all of that. And Yusaku basically just counters that with saying, no, you become strong through doing that. You don't have to be strong, you become it. And that's why human beings have evolved to becoming strong people. If you can't handle the hardships and you don't have many bonds with other people to help you out throughout your times of need, then you're going to struggle. Now then, after this opening monologue, we go back to the dueling. And this basically comes up as like a nostalgia kind of trip for Ai, because he says, I feel nostalgic after seeing Link Slayer, Backup Secretary, and Cyber's Magician. But what I really did like about this part of the episode was the fact that we get the return of the old catchphrase. I don't really know if you can consider it a catchphrase as such, but I did like it nevertheless, and I'm going to refer to it as one. At the beginning of Vrains, we always heard Yusaku say, Arrowhead Kakawin, which is Arrowhead Confirm. And then we saw the kind of monsters turning into the spiral things and going into the arrowheads. And then he would say something like systems combine, and then the monster would appear. We see that in this episode, and that was great. Honestly, I do remember watching the early part of Vrains thinking, oh my god, stop saying that, I'm annoyed. But this time, I actually found it really nice and fitting. Because, you know, this duel between Ai and Yusaku is a duel between friends. They've been together from the beginning, and having nods at what they used to do at the beginning is actually really, you know, satisfying. So then, we do get a new Link monster appear. After Yusaku basically manages to get out those monsters I've just mentioned and Dark Fluid. So he Link summons once because thanks to Ai's effect for IQ, pretty sure that was the card, he gets to basically Link summon once per turn. So he does that and he Link summons Ascension Code Talker. Not Ascension, Access Code Talker. And this monster at first reminded me so much of Utopia. Just looking at the design of this card, it basically is just Utopia with a massive lance instead of a sword and I don't even know what the hell that weird shield was Utopia had. But that's just what it reminds me of. And I like the design of this monster, it is pretty cool. Its effects aren't too bad as well. It gains 1000 attack for each link marker that was used to link summon this card. And because Dark Fluid was used, it gets plus 5000, which boosts it up to 73,000. And as another effect, you can banish one link monster from your graveyard and destroy a card on the field. As long as the attribute is different, you can use this effect again. So basically, Yusaku uses this because he has 6 different elemental type link monsters in his graveyard. And he does this to get rid of pretty much every single card on Ai's field, apart from a rival. This obviously may seem bad, but it does drop a rival's attack points below access code talker now, which is pretty good, and it works nicely in this scenario. And honestly, this card will work in pretty much any scenario. It's just getting it out probably requires quite a lot of link summoning. Now then, we have a double KO with the arrival and access code talker. These two attack each other and they both get mutually destroyed. Now, what kind of makes this kind of cool is that once a rival is destroyed, Dark Templar comes back. So I had Dark Templar on his field, and then we actually get to see what the banish card was that everyone was speculating about. So everyone was saying that, oh my god, this card that Playmaker banished face down was something that Revolver gave him, or it's probably going to save him and win him the duel. And they were all wrong, basically. Yes, technically you could argue it did save him from the duel, but at the end of the day, it didn't specifically help him win. So what the card was, it was actually Recode Alive. Recode Alive basically allows you to bring a decode talker or a code talker back and put it onto your field. Straight after doing this though, because of Templar's effect, Playmaker basically ends his turn with a card face down. And honestly, you're there thinking, oh my god, Ai's gonna win. And yes, I was not really thinking that, but I was kind of leaning towards that at this point. Now, with it being Ai's turn, he heads in for an attack, thinking that he's won, after activating Ai Strike. Now, we know that Ai Strike allows Ai to basically allows him to deal damage equal to the monster that is destroyed. And because Dark Templar can't be destroyed by mutual destruction, that means Playmaker would lose because he would take Decode Talker's attack in damage. However, this does not happen because Playmaker anticipates something like this. And he has a card waiting. Playmaker manages to use the trap card, Decode Hack, which basically negates Ai Strike's effect and gives Decode Talker an extra 700 attack points, and thus making him stronger than Templar, dealing Ai the damage, making Playmaker the winner, and they ended this duel off with a great Decoder Endo! And that was actually a really nice way of doing it. The voice acting for that part was great, the animation was great, and I love the explosion effect which you have of Templar basically being sliced and just cut in half. You basically had like two knights fighting each other, and it was brilliant because you had the swords clashing, you had like the sort of strike where you don't know which one's been hit and which one's going to fall. and then all of a sudden, bam, Playmaker wins, and Ai goes flying. Brilliant. Now then, boys and girls, this death scene was amazing. After losing, Ai reveals that, one of the simulations that led to Ai living and winning, because let's remember, Ai never simulated the duel. He didn't want to. He wanted it to be a fun duel, so he didn't actually try and predict how Playmaker would win in the terms of simulation. But he did simulate the future, and this future of him living led him to the realization that Yusaku will die. Basically, we see this horrible scene where all these tanks are coming up towards Ai, and they're all shooting, but then Yusaku steps in front and he gets shot. This tells us exactly why Ai is wanting to do what he's doing. It's because he cares and cherishes Playmaker / Yusaku so much. He's been with him from the start, and he's technically born because of Yusaku, thanks to the Lost Instant. And this whole scene has some brilliant music to go along with it, because while we see Ai basically dying, and nope, that's the wrong one, my bad. I don't think I put the right one in. Anyway, as we see Ai lying on the floor, basically dying as such, he's fading away, and he says, "You lazily gave me the name Ai. What does it mean?" And Yusaku's like, "It means to love people." And he's just like, "Yeah, I get that." And then as he's vanishing, he looks up and says, "Farewell, I love you, Yusaku." Oh, he says Playmaker and then says Yusaku. And this, along with the music and the animation, was absolutely beautiful, because it just adds to the whole feel and makes you want to be sorry for Ai. We see him kind of become this villain and go off on his own and do these things, but inside he's just wanting a place to belong, and he's just wanting the people he cares about to be safe. And because he knew that Yusaku would die if he survived, and he knew that Playmaker had something up his sleeve before he attacked with Templar at the end, but he still went for it anyway, giving Yusaku the choice. If Yusaku had something face down that would help him win the duel, thus killing Ai off, then that would be Playmaker's choice if he was to activate it and win, or it would be his choice to not activate it, thus dying later on down the road. Now, this could have been prevented if Yusaku had known about it, and if I had been up front with him and said, "Look, listen, I've done these simulations and you're gonna die, but let's work on not letting that happen." So that's one thing I didn't like, but at the same time, I didn't think that while watching the scene. And this scene was just beautiful in itself, and one of the best death scenes we've had in Yu-Gi-Oh! So far. I've said, and many other people have said, that the Rabapi scene was beautifully handled. This one was as well. The one thing that this series has done, is actually handle death scenes really well. Although there has been a lot of them, it actually does handle it, for the most part, brilliantly. And I have to take my hat off to them. They're pretty good. So then, the ending. After a 3-month time skip, we see everyone... Actually, no, before that, I want to mention that once Yusaku gets back into the real world, we actually see him show a ton of emotion about being sad and grieving over Ai. Because he's just told Ai that they were the best of partners, and he doesn't want his friend to go. He didn't want that. But he's just lost one of his most dearest and closest friends. And the raw emotion that he showed, voice acting for it, brilliant. So then, the 3-month time skip, where we see everyone following their own paths. This whole scene was great, and I did enjoy it because we get to see everyone doing their own thing. And honestly, I liked everybody's little segment. It tied off their character nicely. So, we have Jin and Kusanagi both working at the hot dog truck. Now, it's surprising that we see Jin up and about and doing stuff, which, he deserves to be happy and deserves to actually be able to do something now. It's just a shame it took him the last episode to do it. We see Aoi there as well. She's talking and basically asking, have you heard from Yusaku? Or she says Fujiki. But have you heard from Yusaku? And Kusagi's like, no, I haven't heard anything since the battle against Ai. But I'm not moving my truck because he'll always have a place to come back to if he decides to return. And throughout this whole entire sort of segment, everyone's there thinking to themselves, he will one day return. He may not be around now, but when we need him, he'll be back. He is the hero that we need and that we probably don't deserve. I was trying to rip off Batman there if you couldn't get it, but oh well. And it turns out that Akira has now become the CEO of Soltech, which kind of predictable, but great to see that company up and running. And it looks like Vrains has had some massive improvements. They've now had talks about multiple worlds being connected as well, which maybe that has something to do with the new series that's coming that was announced at the end of this and a month before or something. But that was pretty cool. And there's one thing I do want to say. Before we see Soulburner, we see this image here. Is that a nod to 5Ds? Duel monsters on motorcycles? Because Emma looks like she's riding a hovercraft or a hoverbike, and Blood Shepherd is definitely riding a motorcycle of some description, and they both got their ace cards above them. This just looks like a nod to 5Ds. It's like, duel monsters on motorcycles. Brilliant. Probably not. Probably just like a coincidence because they don't want to walk, but I thought it was great. Maybe it's just improved duel boards. Who knows? And then we get to see Soulburner return, and he did tell us that he was going back home to meet his friend. I can't remember her name, unfortunately, sorry. But he does meet her, and they both go into Vrains together. And there was a nice scene because, although I don't like Soulburner too much, I have to admit he's grown on me the last few episodes of this series, and it's nice to see him have his happy ending and finally show us that he is over the lost incident and he's had some closure. He's now happy to make his life his own, and he's moving forward by seeing his friend, and he's happy to go back into Vrains. So that's pretty cool. We see Revolver and Spectre in Vrains as well, looking over, watching everybody, basically being the protector as well while Yusaku's not there. And he's just like, so Revolver, will he come back? And Revolver's like, yeah, he'll come back. And Playmaker, we see him wandering off, going towards some far distant way of the net, without anyone seeing him since the battle against Ai. And this does kind of remind me again of GX. You know how Jaden kind of walked off without saying goodbye to everyone after defeating the main villain? This is very reminiscent to that as well. And I like that because, you know, Yusaku for me hasn't been a character that's been all that friendly towards everyone. But at the same time I don't like it because he's trying to express to Ai about being friends. Conflicted, but that's just how I feel about it. And then, maybe one day, we might see Ai return, because we see him at the end, and he's in a dark place, and it's just his little eyeball. So, maybe there was a bit of data left over somewhere. I can't remember at the moment if there was any part of him that was kind of leaked or broken off anywhere throughout the series. Possibly, maybe. I don't know. However, that is the episode. And overall, I thought it was an amazing episode with some brilliant music and some fantastic animation. If it wasn't for the music and the sound effects, this episode would have been not as great as it was. Honestly, for me, this is probably a very high 8, maybe a possible 9 out of 10 for me, in terms of an episode on itself. And if it weren't for the music and the animation quality, I probably would have dropped that down to about a 6. That's just how much music, sound effects, and animation can actually affect the episode, and it made it that much more enjoyable. But honestly, I want to hear what you all have to say about this episode. Did you all enjoy it? Did you like it? And did you think it was a good way to end off Vrains? Personally speaking, I thought it was a great way to end off the series, and basically kind of give us that breathing time before the next one arrives. So, overall, I've thoroughly enjoyed this particular series of Link Vrains. Yes, I thought it was a bit rushed and there were a few things I thought could be done differently. But all in all, it was a fantastic way to end off the entirety of the show, and everyone who worked on the episode did a fantastic job. So, thank you all for doing that. But that's going to do it for this review. It's been a little bit of a long one, but there was a lot to cover, and I hope you've all enjoyed. If you have, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new so you never miss a video from me, and don't worry, just because this is the final episode of YUGIOH VRAINS does not mean that's the final video I'll be making about this franchise. Once Yu-Gi-Oh! 8, I think it is, or whatever's coming next comes along, I'll be doing videos on that, reviews, expectation videos, stuff like that, and I'll also be doing top 10s, top 5s, and maybe what ifs for Vrains now that it has ended. So there'll be plenty of content to keep you going if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh fan. And if you're an anime fan, stay tuned for the update video where I'll go more into depth about what I'm planning on doing now that a few series that I'm covering have ended. So with that out of the way, leave all your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you have any questions, any queries, just let me know and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But apart from that everyone, I hope you have an amazing day and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye 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 for now.